Well, whether it's 200, 250, 300, 350, or much, much less than that, we are going to know all that tomorrow. So this is not the time to put any more numbers. The poll of poll numbers for what the general election results could be are on your screen. I'm only going to say starting 6 a.m. tomorrow we begin, and I'd really look forward to having you join us. In the course of the next 2 hours, as we look to government formation and beyond, we are going to look at debate number 1 on the Newshour, which is on the screen behind you now. Are the expectations in terms of the economy just too much? What can the next government do in terms of the economy? Look at the Sensex. It almost appears that the Sensex and Dalal Street have started having unrealistic expectations of what a new government can or cannot do. Debate number 2 on 9 p.m. Super Prime Time is the talk about a secular front. Now, this talk isn't going away yet, but ask any analyst and he'll tell you talk of this front is possible only if the BJP goes around 200 and the Congress crosses 100 at least. Is this therefore unrealistic as well as of this moment? And is the Congress only talking about it to somehow sustain the whole debate? Before I take the discussion forward, let me welcome in the studios today Navika Kumar, our political editor, Sunil Alagh. Thank you very much. Ajay Bose, Meghnad Desai on turf, which he'll be familiar with on the economy, Dileep Padgaonkar, Arati Jerath, and GVL Narsimha Rao, who's a member of the BJP's National Committee on Electoral Reforms. Joining us from outside locations today, I have Rajeev Chandrasekhar, Member of Parliament of the Rajya Sabha, Naresh Gujral, on your screen there, of the Shiromani Akali Dal, Prasenjit Bose, who's a left-leaning economist for the left perspective on this, Dr. Rajiv Kumar, former Secretary General of FICCI, D. Raja, Member of Parliament of the Communist Party of India. Now, part of the discussion is also spearheaded by the fact that, especially as far as the Sensex is concerned, it's really gone wild. And sometime my colleagues Anand, Narasimhan and Tina will tell us what impact there has been really on the Sensex. It's gone wild, it's gone unreal. Almost everyone expects things to do a massive turnaround, the government to do something very, very quickly in a 3 to 6 month period. How real is that? Meghnad Desai, let me start.
Well, 3 things. It will find difficult to bring inflation down much anytime soon. Secondly, the budget is in serious deficit territory, and what Chidambaram has left behind is scorched earth. There really is no money. And thirdly, private investment will revive, but that may lead to the rupee strengthening and export suffering. So there are pluses and minuses. But these are the 3 major problems.
Yeah, so but Sunil Alagh, the BJP also, should recall that markets soared even after the election results were announced in 2009. And we know what happened after that. I'm sure you realize that market responses capture sentiment. They are not a guarantor of improved economic performance. Would you, as someone who's part of the Modi group, really, I mean, supporter of Mr. Modi, put a word of caution right now as to what's going on, especially among the investment
companies? I don't think I need to put any word of caution. The economic mess that the UPA is leaving this government in is going to take 2 to 3 years to completely recover from it. But what is important now, as far as I'm concerned and far as industry is concerned, is the perception change. Let me tell you, I visited the United States and London. All investors are saying if Modi is elected, 1 second, let me just, because the perception change is that, look, this government is going to do something. This government is going to be clear. There's going to be no retrospective laws. It is going to take back the due authority that the executive should have. It's all gone to the judiciary. About time that they said, we are going to decide, we are going to move forward. If they move that and they take the low-hanging fruit first, in the first 6 months, and shows that, look, I am beginning investment in infrastructure. You'll watch how employment starts getting generated. Then he has the time, the breathing time, to bring in the current account deficit and the fiscal deficit. The first is bring back the pride in India. Bring back the pride. No, it's very easy to bring back the pride in India and change the perception.
Is it as easy as bringing the pride in India? Are we being unrealistic? Let's get Prasenjit in. Prasenjit, bring the pride back, restore the confidence.
Yeah.
That's all you need to do.
It is difficult to bring and clear the mess out in less than 2 years. But bringing a perception change is very, very not as difficult as you think it is.
Don't make it sound easier than it is. You're going into uncharted territory there. And I'd just like to tell you a word of caution before I go to Prasenjit. Let's go on the big screen out here And let me tell you what really the report card on the economy is, because it's not as if the BJP has not been in government, right? The BJP has been in government, and eventually, as you say, Sunil Alagh, delivery is what counts.
Yes.
What was delivered? Counter these figures. The UPA slipped from an average growth of 8% to 7% in the second tenure, right? Growth in 2013-12 was low with about 5%. Inflation has been the big worry. Fiscal deficit has jumped in the UPA's second stint because of factors like the food security bill. But what about the indicators during the NDA period? How do they compare? Is this, Lord Meghnad Desai, don't want to bring in a tinge of pessimism here, but if you just look at the way the Sensex been reacting, and when you go to specifics, has the BJP been specific enough beyond saying we'll do the right thing and we'll restore sentiment?
No, I think apart from 100 towns, 100 IITs, 100 IIMs joining the rivers, I think we need a roadmap yet. A roadmap of how they're going to tackle these problems. But I think while expectations will change, 6 months, 9 months down the line, there might be disappointment. So let us not have the market rush too soon, too quickly.
This budget, one second, Major, this budget is going to come about in June or July when you have only about 6 months left. June, in the month of June. The real budget will be in February next year, which is going to get into the scene. The first 5 or 6 months, I once again say, if foreign investment starts coming in, your current account deficit will go down. You need dollars. You cannot print money.
What does your government, if the Modi were to become Prime Minister, what does Modi inherit? Sunil Alagh, be realistic.
So what is going to take I'm saying it is going to take 2 to 3 years to correct the figures.
Now we are talking.
The perception has to change first.
So you are saying,
if you don't change the perception
works for the stock market.
No,
Sunil
not
Alagh.
for the stock market. For foreign investment. I am telling you for foreign investment.
Look at the numbers that you have put out there and the numbers that I have tell a different story. These are the Government of India's published numbers. If you look at the real GDP growth in the last 2 years, it is under 5%.
Sure.
So don't take averages of what happened 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And the story, this is a story of UPA taking the country in a declining phase.
Has not done. Your focus so far has been, and I understand where you're coming from, because the BJP campaign has largely been focused on what the UPA did not do. Now the question is being asked, what can the NDA do?
Yes.
And how quickly can you do it?
Yeah, you see.
The focus will shift away, Mr. Rao, and it's going to shift away fairly quickly after you come to power, if you do come to power. Navika, let's look at what the government actually inherits here, right? Because the government inherits at least a decade of low GDP growth. It inherits a huge subsidy burden. Let's pull out that graphic out here behind me. It inherits a huge subsidy burden of all these populist schemes, which I don't think Mr. Modi, I asked him about it, is going to be able to, remove it. It inherits a cut in expenditure. It inherits totally stalled development, and it inherits a real challenge to revive foreign investment. Navika, it's a tall order. I don't know if the Sensex is looking at anything beyond just a change in government right
Well, the first thing this government will need to do is provide the money for all the schemes. It's not as if Mr. Modi can come tomorrow and stop all the Narega schemes.
Yes.
He can stop all the food subsidy, the fertilizer subsidy, the petroleum subsidy that has been going on for so long. It's not something that he's going to be able to address overnight. And as Mr. Alagh was pointing out, within a month of coming in, an interim budget will need to be presented. The fiscal deficit is in bad shape, and the FRBM is completely something that the new finance minister will need to look at very closely. Given these restrictions, how they provide money, because infrastructure is going to be an area that this government is going to get into big time. That's been the Vajpayee formula. That's been something that Modi's also emphasized on in his manifesto. For infrastructure, funds are required. So where are these funds going to come from?
India's infrastructure deficit lies at $1 trillion. That's India's infrastructure deficit, and ratings agencies continue to project a bleak outlook for Indian infrastructure in 2014 and 2015. You see, this debate will change fairly quickly. For a new government.
If I take you back, what Vajpayee did on infrastructure, and thinking that this will help him to be elected back. But that did not happen. And I think that a word of caution to people who think that it's just say that you'll have huge amount of infrastructure, you'll have huge number of jobs, there'll be huge number of investment. As you pointed out, these are not simple matters. There is, for instance, even if you try to do these policies in a very aggressive manner, there are actually land laws. There are land laws which will make it difficult for you to acquire land, and this new government is incapable of changing those land laws because they themselves are signatories to it. There are labor laws which would be very, very difficult to change. These are practical problems. They do not have the wherewithal to make radical, aggressive changes of the kind which would be required to have.
I don't think anybody is expecting him to do all this in 1 year.
Really, what are the markets
5
expecting?
years to do it in.
What are the markets expecting?
We don't need to work towards what the markets are expecting. I think government will have its own agenda. And government, you see, don't be a pessimist. I believe this is what he told you in your interview. I'm an optimist. And if there is a half full or half empty, I see this as being half full. And the rest of the half being filled with something else, gas. So don't expect him, like Sunil Alagh said, he can't deliver everything. He will have a priority list.
That sounds like what Rahul Gandhi would say. That don't be a pessimist.
No,
be an optimist.
He has delivered under all the circumstances that you are talking about. He has delivered a 10% growth in Gujarat. He has delivered a near 10% growth in agriculture.
He's not a guy who just sits in
Rajiv Chandrasekhar, the fact is that Gujarat development model is a good election slogan.
No, right? It's not just a slogan. No, you will see what he did. What did he do in Gujarat? When he came in first,
I know what you say about Gujarat, but the fact is now we are talking at a national level.
Yeah, sure.
The fact is there a danger of disappointing the electorate if you do not perform at that kind of a speed that you're talking about? Dileep Padgaonkar, please, before I go to Rajiv Chandrasekhar.
There is an immediate challenge before Mr. Modi, which is to contain inflation. Exactly. Yeah. Given the fact that we are heading towards a poor monsoon, that is going to affect inflation even more. And I would want to really know what are the specific decisions that the Modi government would take to meet this challenge. Because in all his speeches, he's been harping on how inflation has gone haywire. A bad monsoon doesn't promise a good start for the Modi government.
Look at the amount of grains that are stored, which weren't pulled out.
Unfortunately, nobody seems to have read the party's manifesto. And this is right on the top of the manifesto. We talk about food inflation. The real focus will be on addressing the food inflation.
What about the poor monsoon?
Yeah,
right.
Fine, you see,
1 year we'll take it out of the storage. Why do you keep it? We have, what is Mr. Pawar and everybody criticized for? You have a huge storage, yet the prices are going up. You're not pulling it out to bring it down.
How do you pull it out?
One second.
I just want to say one thing. Arnab, can I just make a short intervention?
Take it out of your godown, put it into the market.
I think, the perception will bring the price down. When we talk about the Gujarat model, that actually in some ways the Chief Minister of a state is much more powerful than the Prime Minister of India. At the end of the day, all these decisions, even for food inflation, you want to take...
If he doesn't have the power, we are discussing something else.
No, because he has to operate through the states.
Yes.
Every policy decision he takes has to be implemented.
Which Chief Minister will not want to bring inflation down?
So he will have to carry them along.
Which Chief Minister will say no to a measure which brings inflation down?
He will have to persuade them. He will have to negotiate with them.
How quickly, in your view, Rajiv Chandrasekhar, will the debate shift? Of course, the big question is whether this is a government that needs a few allies or whether this is a government that does not need any allies. We'll know that by tomorrow. Regardless of that, how quickly, in your view, will the debate shift from government formation, Mr. Chandrasekhar, to these kind of issues? And what time frame will a government get to actually deliver, given the terrifying expectations which Mr. Modi will himself come in with if he does?
3 to 5 years.
Let him answer,
so,
Mr.
Arnab,
Chandrasekhar.
Give me a minute. Yeah, I would like to give a short and answer this question. Arnab, let's be very clear. 5 years of fiscal mismanagement are not going to be solved overnight by anybody. I mean, regardless of whether he's an economic genius or not. So let's just put that as a starting point. But what the investors and indeed the investing community, job seekers and everybody who has a stake in the economy are bullish about is the fact that the last 3 years of decline will be arrested and that the trend going forward would be positive. Now, I agree with a couple of your panelists who said this, that the problems are not going to get solved overnight. But the roadmap to solving the problem will become visible very soon into the early days of the government. And as long as people see the light and the tunnel and the length of the tunnel, investors and the overall economic community will start taking a far more bullish approach towards the economy. So let's be very clear, there are no shortcuts to solving the mess that we are in. Lord Meghnad Desai called it a scorched economy, and I completely concur. Every indicator of the economy today shows us that the incoming government has very limited headroom in terms of investments. And they can only do that if they switch part of the public spending from subsidies to investment. So,
which cannot happen.
In a nutshell, I don't think...
Which cannot happen, which Mr. Modi has himself said is not going to happen.
It's not possible.
That itself is a false expectation.
No, Arnab, bear me out. I'm not saying this is going to happen on the June of 2014. Headroom in public spending is something you create. It doesn't happen because you wake up one day and go and look for an overdraft in a bank. It is created by creating investments, it is created by creating revenue buoyancy, it is created by creating economic activity and economic growth. So the key focus of a government, incoming government, is to take a very bad playbook, very bad set of factors that have been left behind, and try and gradually create headroom for itself, but by creating decisive governance action from day one. There is going to be no miracle in June, no miracle in July. This is about steadily reviving the economy rather than creating a miracle overnight.
So therefore, Mr. Chandrasekhar, you accept the challenges one side of your very populist promises. Your loud complaints, you're hitting the roads whenever there was an increase in diesel prices, talking about inflation on the one side, and then delivering to foreign investors and investors to keep the perception up, because as Sunil Alagh has himself agreed, the first 6 months is all about maintaining the perception.
Yes.
How is a government going to do both? Since on both fronts, the expectations are going to be fairly wild. That's my question. Prasenjit, what do you think?
No.
Let's get the left-leaning view now, and Mr. Raja as well. Prasenjit, how do you think this is going to pan out?
No, what? I was not being able to follow the discussion. I mean, what exactly are we discussing? Can you please repeat?
I thought it was quite clear, Prasenjit, but in case you are not being able to follow what is a pattern of a fairly straightforward discussion, I am very happy to repeat it for you all over again in case you need a little bit more time to comprehend certain basic facts. Prasenjit, the debate is about what kind of economic challenges Mr. Modi will face if he becomes Prime Minister, and whether the expectations are too sky high at this point of time for him to deliver.
Well, I mean, I think that the UPA 2 government, which is clearly on its way out, has left behind a very, I mean, the economy is really in shambles as of today. So whichever next government comes, it's going to face an extremely challenging time. But if it is a BJP government, as you are projecting or predicting, then I don't see much hope, simply because precisely the same policies of the Congress which has led to this mess, the BJP does not have any other policy alternative, but they will pursue the same set of policies. So frankly speaking, I don't see any positive outcome coming out. And if you're talking in terms of what is happening in the sense,
let's hear your economic model on resolving it.
I think.
Can I say that the UPA until 2 years ago was
I don't want to respond
Thank you very much. And the left would never have achieved either that sort of growth or any kind of redistribution. You can forget about the left. The problem is that we want the new government to achieve the kind of growth rate the UPA 2 achieved and in the early years. Question, how soon can it do it?
No, on the one side, we have a fair amount of cynicism that's come in from Prasenjit, who first could not comprehend what we were talking about at all when the discussion was fairly clear, to then saying that both the Congress and the left follow principally the same policy. I think we are trying to look ahead right now, and I'd like to get Mr. Let's get
Rajiv Kumar.
Rajiv Kumar into the debate before. I think D. Raja is also there. But Rajiv, you know, how long is the honeymoon period going to last for any new government, even a Modi government?
But the honeymoon period will not last very long, and the rubber hits the road right away. But let me first clarify something that, you know, talking about shambled economy and scorched earth, etc., due respect to Meghnad, is actually not so true, because after all, you're still getting 4.7% GDP growth rate. You've got about $50 billion in terms of FDI. You are getting, you know, recovery in terms of, you know, the diesel prices and everything being moving up, etc. So you've got, you know, that sort of policy moving. So what the Modi government is inheriting is an economy which has got structural strengths, but which has been mismanaged to the point of bringing it down to its knees.